What's going on YouTube? So in front of me we have a 2015 Victory Highball. Good looking bike, but there's an eyesore on the front. This ugly halogen headlight. It's very outdated and we're going to be modernizing the bike a little bit, put a nice LED up front, and it's going to be a big improvement. Pretty much all cruisers come with these halogen headlights and they're horrible. If you've rode any cruiser bike at night, it's kind of the equivalent of having a candle in front of you. Like, there's no light output at all. It's barely safe to ride. Pretty much every cruiser, they all run the same style headlight up front. There's a 5.5-inch housing and a 7-inch. You can find these LEDs off Amazon in both sizes because they're fairly generic. So I'm always a little bit skeptical buying LEDs off Amazon because a lot of the times they'll have a ridiculous lumen output, like 1,000,000 lumens or whatever, which obviously isn't true. But this one has an 80-watt rating. For this size of LED, 80 watts is actually really good. And I think it's going to be kind of the perfect size, perfect output. So I'll leave a link in the description below because I am fairly impressed with it so far. Even though it's made in China, like, let's be real, most things are made in China nowadays, unfortunately. So let's check it out. So this is one of the better looking ones that I found. And it's got some weight to it, which I like. Nice big, thick cooling fins on the back. Even the plug and the wiring, it feels really good quality for what it is. So far, pretty impressed. Coming over to the bike, you can see this lens is really faded. Like, these things get pretty hot and it's just so outdated. It's gonna really modernize this bike. This ring is kind of chrome. I'm gonna take this off, paint it black. And then it's gonna kind of match the rest of the bike a little bit more because this bike is fairly blacked out. And the install on these is super simple. There's one little screw on the bottom here. You take that screw out and this plate just pops off. And then this whole light just falls right out. And you got your one plug in the back and a rubber ring that's gonna come off and swap to your new housing. So we are getting a small amount of light from the window there, but you can kind of see the cast of the stock halogen bulb here. This is low beam, that's high beam. Low beam, you can almost walk right in front of the light here. You can stare straight into it, really not that bright. High beam, slightly better, it's kind of just aimed up a little bit higher, still not that bright. Here they are side by side. This thing looks so much better already. Just our little rubber ring we're gonna swap over. Get rid of this old faded junk. The LED with the cooling fins is a little bit bigger on the back side, but it'll still fit. Just might take a little persuasion to get it into the housing. So just slipped it in for a quick little test fit here, and it looks so much better already. Just because the cooling fins and everything on the back of this are a little bit bigger, I did have to take this plastic trim out, just a couple push pins, it just slides right out. Gave us a little more clearance inside. Still a tight fit, but you kind of have to manipulate the rubber a little bit to get it in. And takes a little bit of persuasion, that's for sure, but it's gonna be worth it. This thing looks good. Low beam, high beam. That is way brighter. One thing to point out really quick, the beam pattern on this halogen bulb is very narrow. Look, it's only covering this garage door. It's not really touching my spare tires, and it's not going onto the right garage door. High beam, still very narrow, and you lose the low beam when you hit the high beam. So it's one or the other, not both at the same time. Now looking at the new LED, and immediately look at how wide that light's casting. So it's touching my spare tires, it's touching the right garage door. I would have to back up for you to see how wide this beam angle is. This will translate into really good ditch illumination at night. And then taking a look at this high beam, it stays on at the same time as the low beam. So you're just getting more light output in general. So all around better setup. low beam, high beam. Now that is bright when you're looking at it. Probably hard to tell in the video, but huge improvement. Unreal. Doesn't get much better than that. Good shot of the low beam there. And high beam with everything on. Here it is with the chrome ring, not fully installed, but I don't think the chrome ring really does that LED justice. So I'm gonna paint it black, and I think it's really gonna make that light pop even more. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of that chrome ring. Let's go paint it now. And just like that, we're all finished up. The ring's painted black, and that's our final look. If you ask me, this turned out really well. I love how this thing looks. But final thoughts on this light. Should you go out and spend your hard-earned money on it? If you can get it kind of 50% off like I did for 50 bucks, it's kind of a no-brainer. I think it's totally worth it. Even at full price, 100 bucks, it's still a really nice light. Taking the performance out of the equation, just for the looks factor, really modernizes the bike. I would do it again in a heartbeat. And on top of that, you are getting better light performance as well. So it's a win-win. For me, when you're looking at this bike, that's kind of the first thing your eye is drawn towards. So it just makes sense that you want it to be nice. And it really does a good job at catching your eye. Out in the daylight today, it kind of catches the sun a little bit. It is DOT approved as well. So who knows if that's Chinese DOT approved or what, but it is stamped, so you shouldn't get hassled for it. The fit and finish, it was a little bit tight getting into the housing. That rubber ring, I ended up trimming just a little bit. It worked. And if I ever do want to go back to the stock halogen bulbs, if I sold the bike or whatever, wanted to keep the light, I could convert it back with the rubber ring still. So not a big deal, but it did take a little bit of monkeying around there. Once everything was installed, I did have to realign the headlight as well. So this housing, it just tilts on this bottom bolt. I had to tilt it down just a little bit. You could probably notice when I was casting the light on the garage door there, but all very simple things to do. All in all, very happy with it. So that pretty much wraps up the video. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and we'll catch you guys in the next one. Cheers.